We're back. What's going on, everybody? First and foremost, welcome to News 6 Weather at 9:30. I'm meteorologist David Nazario in for meteorologist Jonathan Kegges as we all hopefully enjoy the Thanksgiving holiday, the happiest of Thanksgivings to everybody tuning in this evening. Or if you're watching this after the fact, regardless, a happy Thanksgiving to you and yours. I hope that you've managed to enjoy the holiday to its fullest. We're here, we're back to talk all things Central Florida weather and a little bit of large-scale weather. We'll talk all about this Thanksgiving frontal system that has worked its way through our neighborhood and what's to come as we rock through the final couple of days of November 2025 and prepare for the home stretch of the 2025 calendar year with the start of December 1st this upcoming Monday. I don't know about you all, but I cannot believe we went from talking tropics to cold fronts to fall, and now next thing you know, December is literally knocking on our doorstep. So I'm wishing all of you the happiest of Thanksgivings. I hope that you've enjoyed the day. You've had laughs, love, and great memories made with friends, family, and alike. We're going to go ahead and get started. Let's go ahead and get you some headlines because the headlines are going to be the name of the game. We're going to be tossing and turning over the next 3 to 5 days together here. So first and foremost, the Thanksgiving cold plunge has begun. Temperatures outside right now are continuing to plummet, and when you look at the temperature difference graphic, which I will have pulled up for you all here momentarily once we get past the headlines, you'll see that we've already dropped on average anywhere between 15 to a total 20 degrees when compared to this point in time yesterday. If you rewind the clock to about 9:31 p.m. yesterday, the 26th, we were sitting 15 to 20 degrees warmer than we are right now, and once again, just as we saw during the earlier portions of this month, it's going to be the wind chill, the feels like temperatures that get us, especially for your Black Friday morning tomorrow, and then again Saturday morning, albeit, notice the bottom headline there, we're going to get to warming pretty quickly. This is going to be what I'm calling a flash freeze. Now, it's going to be a little too windy and a little too moist out there for things to get frosty. We do have some freeze warnings in effect for our northern counties, particularly if you reside in Alachua County, the Gainesville area. We're looking at temperatures dropping to about the freezing mark with those feels like temperatures going well below freezing, coming in on average between 27 to 30 degrees Fahrenheit. The rest of us here in Central Florida, which I'll talk you through the numbers here momentarily, will be sitting right around freezing, if not just above freezing in terms of that wind chill factor, the feels like temperatures. The actual air temperatures will not be dropping nearly as much as they did with that initial plunge of cold, frigid air that we saw to kind of rock in the first week or two of November. Now, when we look at the water vapor satellite, once again, the pattern is very, very rough out there. It's very rough. And I'm noticing a trend. If you all remember the last time we met, and I had mentioned, believe it or not, it was a combination of both the jet stream and what occurs as we get to the tipping point between fall and winter time, and the tropical action that we've been seeing in the Western Pacific. I had mentioned that was what was responsible for that almost record, I should say, the actual record-setting temperatures that we saw earlier at the start of November. That's kind of happened again. If you were to look at a website like Tropical Tidbits or take a look at the Joint Typhoon Warning Center, JTWC, that monitors the typhoon action out there in the central and western Pacific, we've actually had a couple more strong typhoons and cyclones in that corner of the world. And lo and behold, we got a big old trough once again digging in over the eastern half of the United States, and it's bullying that subtropical warmth that had been in place since that cold blast of previous ended. Now, when you come over to the radar here, it looks almost like I have no data popped up. But I promise you, this is a looping image. You just can't see anything because with that front moving as fast as it did, it almost quite literally acted like a sweeper. Kind of like a broom, just sweeping all that low and mid-level moisture out of our neighborhood very quickly. We started the day with some dense fog in some areas. I myself, when I went to the gym this morning to work for that Thanksgiving meal, I went out there and I saw visibility dropped down to about a mile or two as I was headed down the road. We had a lot of dense, patchy fog out there to start the day, which did tell me we had a lot of moisture in play, and I do think that's what was responsible for developing the thunderstorms that we saw moving through our west coast counties, lower lower Sumter and Lake County, and a good majority of my neighborhood over in Polk County. It all acted like a rake as that front screamed across the peninsula, and now we are pretty much bone dry across the woods. Let me go ahead and click on the image here, and I'll zoom us out so you can see what's left of the front. There you have it. That's all that is left down off of West Palm Beach, Boca Raton area. You can see a little bit of the showers and a stray lightning strike associated with the nose of that cold air. But the rest of us are going to remain dry, and that's going to be the name of the game, at least until about Sunday. Now, temperatures outside right now, you can see we are quickly cooling down. Gainesville and Ocala in the low 50s. Same with Palm Coast and DeLand. New Smyrna Beach coming in at 57. Titusville, Cape Canaveral, Cocoa Beach, Melbourne, and Mico. All of Brevard County, if you're not in the aforementioned cities. The local area, all of Brevard County, Osceola, and Polk, most of Polk anyways, are still in the low 60s as that cold air really begins to work its way in. I always find it very impressive when these rapid moving fronts come across the state. If you notice, we develop a bit of a gradient. There's a big temperature difference between Gainesville and Ocala and the Orlando metro area and my old neck of the woods in downtown Kissimmee, about a 10-degree difference, and we're only going a couple counties across. Now, I do also want to apologize. I'm not too sure what just happened with the chat over on YouTube, but for some reason, it's not popping up. Don't see it. It says that YouTube suddenly kicked the chat. Not too sure why, but we're going to keep on rocking. If you do have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments section down below upon the conclusion of this live stream. And you can see this is that temperature change I had told you about. You rewind the clock about 24 hours, and we were about 15 to 20 degrees warmer than where we are right now. Gainesville and Ocala being the overachievers that they are, we're already approaching that minus 20-degree difference, which means in comparison to yesterday, we were 20 degrees warmer than we are now, and it really shows how those temperatures are once again, quote, falling off a cliff as we go through time. Now, the forecast for tonight, on average, again, it's not really going to be the air temperatures that really sneak up on us. We are going to see temperatures plummet. You can see the overnight low for most of us is going to be somewhere in the low to mid 40s as the cold air moves in and the winds pick up. When you look at the forecast lows for a majority of our viewing area, it's once again going to be our northern counties. Again, Alachua County with that freeze warning in effect, primarily because of the feels-like temperatures that we are expecting as we go through the coolest portions of tomorrow morning, which tend to occur between 5, 6, and 7 o'clock as the sun breaks out and begins to shine. The rest of us, again, low to mid 40s and a couple of 50s still out there potentially in Cape Canaveral and Cocoa Beach. And then tomorrow, we're going to struggle. The air is going to fight tooth and nail to try to make it up to the mid to upper 60s. Plenty of sunshine, but just not a lot of warmth out there to go around. When you look at the hourly temps, we are going to be well below average once again. But to tell you the truth, that's about it. When we come back, I'll show you exactly how long this cold stint is going to be. And while it may not be freezing for all of us, even once you factor in what the winds do to our air temperatures, I'm still considering this a flash freeze because this is an instance of blink and you'll miss it. So if you're not a fan of the cold weather, I've got some good news when we come back from our first break. If you're like me and do appreciate the cool, dry weather when it does come to town here in Central Florida, well, this just isn't quite it just yet. So don't go around, don't go around, don't go anywhere, folks. I'll be right back with you here momentarily. And so begins the second half of News 6 Weather at 9:30. Hey, sorry to everybody over on YouTube. I'm not too sure what happened there, and I'm low-key kind of tired of all the random disconnections and hiccups that we tend to see whenever I'm here at the helm. But I got the chat back up. I can see everybody in the window once again. I just had to close the window or close the chat, turn it back on, and it reconnected instantly. I'm not too sure why YouTube decided to dork up for just a second. So let's get back to it. We're going to talk national conditions for just a little bit. I'll take you full screen once again. This is what we've got going on out there in terms of our national temperatures. And what I really want you to pay close attention to is going to be this area in particular. You see where the blues transition quickly to the greens and then eventually the yellows and the warmer temps. The reason I bring that up, even though these are our air temperatures that we're going to see as we go through the next 12 to 18 hours, this is particularly where our jet stream is running. And over the next few days, we're looking at not only a Colorado low beginning to spin up, but then as we go through the first couple of days of December together, it looks like a Texas low could possibly try to develop down here as another big push of jet stream energy comes in out of the Pac Northwest and races down the Rocky Mountains into the southern plains. That could really flare up some big-time rains, snowfall to the north of that area, and possible severe weather for the Carolinas, Virginia, and Georgia, and maybe even really ramp up our rain chances here in Florida. I'll show you that right now. That's also probably going to bring some pretty hearty travel delays as we come back from our Thanksgiving holiday and start prepping for the final hoorah before Christmas, even though I know Christmas has just about been in full swing for all intents and purposes for a while now. Let's get you over to some of our computer model data. Let's look at the Euro. So this is next Monday. Coming up, December 1st, Monday at 7 o'clock in the evening. And this is that Texas low I was telling you about. It's called a regime. We don't typically use them as much in meteorology anymore, but they're more or less like rules of thumb. When you get a low pressure system to develop near about Texas, maybe Arkansas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, somewhere in that general area, I'll draw it in for you. Right in through this corner of the world, we call that a Texas low, because it typically develops down in that area and then swoops rapidly off towards the east, curving back towards the east and northeast. That's where you'll usually see a really hearty rain event on the south side of it, possibly a severe weather event as well, pending the necessary ingredients to get those strong storms to kick off. And then this time of year, if the cold air is there, as that moisture wraps around that counterclockwise flow of your parent low pressure, you get a ton of freezing rain, icing, and heavy snowfall. So let me get the ink out of the way, take you full screen so you can take a look here. As we go through time, we go late in the evening on Monday into Tuesday. Look at what happens here. You can already see hints and whispers of that freezing rain possibly between where the transition from rain and snow begins, extending into portions of Virginia, West Virginia, Kentucky, maybe back through the western periphery of North Carolina. Heavy snow wrapping around the cold sector of our low pressure, and then look at all this rainfall. All this rainfall dipping into the warm sector. When I say things like warm sector, it's the warm section, the warm region of our low pressure. The low is here. I'll go ahead and clear the ink so it's not a kerfluffled mess. So there's your low pressure right in through this area between Mobile and the western extent of Mississippi and Louisiana. If you imagine the flow around it, we're dragging cold air from up north on the west side and warm air from the south on the east side. This would be your warm sector here. That's all the warmth. Then you've got the cold back up behind it, and that's what comes swooping in with the cold front there and your warm front somewhere in through here. Now, normally I'd be a little concerned that this would be a severe weather setup in the making. Now, I do still think we could see some possible isolated severe thunderstorms if you're someone who lives in Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and then up the eastern seaboard as this feature begins to really intensify. But then for us here in Florida, we're still kind of in a bit of a toss-up, kind of left holding the bag when determining exactly how much of this rainfall is really going to make it down into us. Right now, the Euro is probably the most frugal, showing maybe a 30 to 40% chance of some rain, particularly north of I-4 for our northern and northwestern counties. Not a whole lot of it coming down through central Florida and southeastern central Florida, but the GFS, the Canadian model, the German model, a lot of our other computer models are thinking this will have enough gusto and pep in its step to really make its way through our viewing area. You can see, I mean, if I were to zoom us on in, looking at the Euro, even up close, despite the resolution of this computer model, it's still showing late on Tuesday, just after the warmest part of the afternoon. We're going to have some rain working through Tampa Bay, Orlando, and then back up towards Volusia, Flagler counties, and further north from there. So, you know, models did a poor job in depicting what rains we did see today, so I would err on the side of maybe higher rain chances as this comes down, especially given the fact that this is going to be so close to home. If this were a feature that formed way up near the Dakotas, Minnesota, the Great Lakes, then, it'd probably have a rough time trying to bring all that rigmarole down towards us. But the fact that the actual low pressure area is going to be just to the north of Florida tells me we're going to have a bit more of that driving force, the momentum of the flow around that low, flow of the low. See what I'm doing there? We're spitting bars at you tonight on this Thanksgiving evening. But we're going to have a little bit more push, giving it a little more of a nudge in that cold air to sweep back around the west side of the low down into Florida, raking up whatever moisture we have available. So I've run out of time once again. When we come back, I'll go ahead and dial in some rain chances with you, and we'll talk about that, especially since this cold blast really isn't going to be sticking around for us for very long. And then we'll also take a quick inventory of the 2025 hurricane season and my very, very early thoughts as to what next year to its entirety could look like, not just the hurricane season, although I do have some preliminary thoughts on that as well. So don't go anywhere, folks. Hold the phone, grab your snack, refresh the drink if need be, or grab some seconds, thirds, fourths, fifths of your Thanksgiving feast this evening. We'll be right back. All right, all right. Here we go. The final leg of our News 6 weather at 9:30. I want to bring this up real quick because as I'm sure you're all well aware of, especially since Jonathan Kegges especially made sure to bring it up over the last few days, we had a little bit of a scare. And when I say scare, I mean that a lot of our models out of nowhere perked up to the idea of maybe another named storm trying to develop in the Western Caribbean. That came and went. Not a single model out there now, nor a single individual ensemble model member is showing any kind of a sign of a tropical system developing in the Caribbean at all whatsoever. We're pretty much done. The hurricane season wraps up in approximately 3 more days, and this is what we should be able to expect for the rest of 2025, even though we've had some erroneous spin-ups back in the day in the month of December. Not looking at anything like that taking shape anytime soon, but as we wrap up this hurricane season, just want to hit some key points here. We did have 13 named storms, a little lower, I should say a lot lower than we've seen the last couple of hurricane seasons, minus 2022, which I do believe bottomed out at around 14 to 16 named storms. Don't quote me on that. Might have to do a quick Google search after the live discussion wraps up. 2023, despite an El Nino, came in as the 4th most active in history, and then we all know what happened last hurricane season with an abundance of landfalling systems. This hurricane season was almost a complete opposite of that, despite the fact that my buddy and I, Jonathan, we pretty much nailed the preseason forecast. Go ahead and check out that video after this is all said and done if you want to take a quick look at how that verified. I do want to show you this, though. This is something that really has my attention for next year. These are going to be our Climate Prediction Center and our global computer models, our dynamical models. The probabilistic dynamical models hinting at maybe El Nino coming back for another go as we get into the midsections in the latter half of 2026. Now, we're going to have to watch a lot of moving pieces here because, as we all know, El Nino was rocking, a very strong El Nino in 2023. That did not stop the hurricane season out here in the Atlantic whatsoever. And we also had a couple of landfalls, more landfalls that hurricane season than we did this one. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to have naturally busy El Nino years from here on out. That's where I'd mentioned we got to look at a couple of the other puzzle pieces to determine if El Nino and a couple of other variables are going to squash the season altogether, or if we could see some wild instances just like we saw in 2023 and a mixture of that, kind of a mixed bag appearance like we've seen in 2024. I also bring this up because as we get closer to the back half of next year, I know we're really jumping the gun here, but with as fast as time is moving, I just want to put a feeler out there now. I love to do these long-range seasonal outlooks. This could definitely have implications on our winter pattern, our spring pattern early next year, tornado seasons both at the front end of the calendar year and towards the back, and then especially as we round out next year, if El Nino does come to fruition, the same type of setup that we are expecting here early December could definitely be a severe weather, if not a tornado event for us here in Florida. That's kind of how El Nino will really flip things upside down. So that's why I have my eyes on this already. Not going to begin to kind of draw any conclusions for next hurricane season, but just know I'm going to be watching a lot of the large moving pieces and the circulations that we have in the global atmosphere, watching those water temps very closely, and then continuing to monitor what the trends from La Nina, neutral, and El Nino look like as we go through December, January, February, and March. Usually by about March, that's when things get a little wonky, and then April, May, we really sort things out very quickly. So that's that. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in this evening. I do applaud you all, actually. Thanks for listening to me talk weather with everybody, have a weather conversation with you this evening on a Thanksgiving night. Happiest of Thanksgivings once again. It means the world that you had a conversation with me this evening. It's great to see those of you in the chat, and thank you to all of you, those who tuned in over on News 6 Plus this evening. It's great to be with you all, and I'm very thankful for all of you wonderful viewers out there. I hope that you've enjoyed the holiday and continue to do so, since technically the night is still young, especially if you don't have to go back to work for Black Friday tomorrow. If you are headed out tomorrow for the shopping spree, great weather, lots of sunshine, a little breezy. Make sure you keep the jacket on you at all times. And we're looking at a pretty solid weekend before maybe rains return to the forecast as we go through Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, the beginning of December. We'll talk to you again soon. We'll see you same time, same place, 9:30 p.m. tomorrow night for News 6 Weather at 9:30. But until then, you know the phrase. This is the Digital Weather Center signing out.